I think like the first thing that is most essential that I had to figure out for myself, and now that I teach other people, is to get clear on who your ideal client is. In other words, who is your niche? Because when we're not clear about who our ideal client is or that niche, then we find ourselves like kind of chasing things all the time, like chasing different marketing strategies, or even when we go out in the world and try to talk about our services, it's kind of falling flat with people because we're not speaking about it in a clear way, or because we're not speaking to the right person, essentially. And this is something that I resisted at first, and most health professionals do, because we're heart-centered individuals. Like, we want to help everybody. But as the saying goes, when you help everyone, you're helping no one, essentially.
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. So excited to share today's wonderful guest with you. Her name is Jenn Malecha, and she is the Wholistic Health Boss. And she is just killing it out there. She is an FDN practitioner, and we love our FDN folks, the fellow health coaches that they kind of coined themselves as. And she is really just going to drop a lot of knowledge on us, really just talking about her wonderful journey and her experience in the business world. So really excited to share her with you. As always, please leave a rating and review on iTunes. It goes a super long way for me to continuously get the caliber of guests like Jenn. So to keep it up, I really appreciate that. I did leave something on a prior podcast, and I've been getting a lot of people on the feedback about getting in touch with me to get a free copy of my upcoming book. I do have a little stall going on. I'm in the process of learning this process, and it's probably going to be at least the first iteration that I'll be able to supply to everybody within the next 2 weeks. But yeah, if you definitely want a copy, please go to Omar at OmarCumberbatch.com. Drop me a line. I've had a bunch of people already do that on through that portal. I have a lot of people on LinkedIn who've been interested in helping me get some reviews on Amazon and such. So it's in the works. I haven't forgot about it. It's just learning this process. There's some hiccups as you can only imagine. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to share some of that journey with the audience as well when this all comes out. So let's jump into the show. Hey, Jenn, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good, Omar. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, no, always love an FDNer coming on the show and showing so much of our listeners all the knowledge that you get out of that program. And I'm really excited because you're doing your thing. You've been at this for a while, and I just want to hear everything. I want to hear your origin story, how you became, so adept at the business world, and just everything. Because, like I said, you have a real, true inspiration for I'm sure a lot of health coaches out there, because you do help them get to where they actually need to be. So I want to give you the floor and give you the opportunity to talk about that for a little bit, and then we'll jump into some questions going forward.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I think like most of us that become like health coaches, health professionals, we're often inspired by our own health journeys. And that's, been the case with me as well, too. I kind of always have been like interested in health and like fitness. I played sports in high school. Like, we had a garden growing up, like grew some of our own food. And so when I went off to college, I decided to study kinesiology, and I really wanted to work with like sports teams. Like, I at the time was like, I want to be a sports psychologist, because my dad was a huge 49ers fan. Like, our whole life like centered around football. I mean, I grew up watching like Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, some of the dynasty players. And I had this big vision of like, I'm going to be a sports psychologist. Like, I want to help these players, like after, injuries, get their mindset right and get back on the playing field. Right. So part of the path for that was like going in and doing kinesiology, studying kinesiology and majoring in athletic training, and then going and getting a graduate degree or a master's in psychology. So I started down that path. And along the way, I'm like studying all this stuff, and I start also accumulating like health issues myself. Like here I am studying, fitness, nutrition, health, like being the healthiest person that I know. Yet I started like developing really severe seasonal allergies that would like manifest into ear infections, and those would like take me out for like days at a time, essentially. But I, as most of us do in college, we kind of just like bear down and get through that, right? So my first career was in the fitness industry. I broke out, became a personal trainer, then started like managing these multi-million-dollar fitness facilities. And along with that, I also then was diagnosed with skin cancer at the age of 25. And it really didn't make any sense to me because I was like, I don't understand. Like, I eat healthy. I'm eating boneless, skinless chicken breast and broccoli, and I exercise regularly. Like, again, I studied kinesiology, so I was like, I'm the healthiest person that I know. This doesn't make sense. And that sent me just searching for answers, and that's when I came across Reed Davis, which I know you've had on the podcast here before. He's the founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, that program. And I heard him speak for the very first time, and he's talking about, the physiological aspects of the body, like how the hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy, and nervous system all work together. And I just felt like all the pieces of the puzzle kind of came into view. Like, even though I had taken physiology and biology and human anatomy in college, nobody ever really talked about the body in the same way that Reed did, and how all these systems like work together, and talking about, cortisol and inflammation and stress and bacteria, overgrowth in the gut and liver congestion. So I immediately dove into that training program. And as part of the program, you have to run these lab tests, these functional lab tests on yourself. And they revealed all the missing pieces of my health puzzle, essentially. Like, I had pretty severe like hormone imbalances going on from being on birth control for like a really long time, plus all the stress and inflammation that was going on in my body that was just like tanking and depleting, dysregulating my cortisol. I had a super congested liver, like detox system, bacteria overgrowth in my gut, like H. pylori, which was contributing to some of the migraines that I was experiencing, and joint pain. And then I also had, this was like the big thing, Omar, was I had really high oxidative stress levels. And I have to tell you, like, I've been practicing now for 11 years. And there has maybe been less than 5 clients of mine that have had oxidative stress levels like mine, elevated in the same way that mine was.
Wow.
And oxidative stress is a sign of cellular DNA damage. Well, if you think about it, what is cancer? Cancer is mutated cells, essentially, right? Like cellular damage. So it was like, everything came into view about why I had skin cancer at such a young age, when there was no family history, like no rhyme or reason why I would have something like that. But I then, looking at my body through a new lens like this, you could see how it was the perfect environment for cancer to kind of grow and cultivate. And I'm happy to say that, with those tools and that education, I'm now 41. I was diagnosed at 25, and I've never had a reoccurrence of skin cancer or any other kind of cancer, any health issue to that extreme, like ever again, which is pretty amazing.
No,
So
great.
yeah, I just felt so inspired then to like help other people, because as a personal trainer, I was applying all the things that we have been conditioned to think are the rules around health, right? Like, eat less, move more. And even though my clients like me were so diligent about counting calories and exercising, like, they were struggling to lose weight. And quite honestly, I even struggled to maintain my healthy weight also. So I was like, I'm going to use these tools, this new training in FDN, and I want to help people like on a deeper level. And so that's really like those kind of elements are what inspired me to go out and become like a health coach, or we like to call ourselves FDN practitioners, and start working with other people. I kind of like transitioned out of the fitness industry. And a big part of that was because I also wanted freedom. When you're doing like physical services like personal training, you're kind of like tied down to a physical location. And even, if you're doing personal training virtually, which I did for a while, you're still you need some physical elements to do that, right?
Hmm.
And one of my like passions in life is to travel. So I wanted flexibility and freedom to travel, but I also, had a mom who was diagnosed as being terminally ill and a brother who went through rehab. And I wanted to be able to like have the freedom to be with them and for anything in the future that might come up, just to like be present for those moments that matter most to us, that really like are the soul of life. And
Hmm.
so I started a virtual practice in 2014 as an FDN practitioner, working out of my home in San Diego and helping people all over the world. I've had clients in Australia, the UK, all over the US. And as I started to gain success in my business, other health coaches and practitioners just started reaching out to me, kind of like asking me, what was I doing? How did I know how to do this? Like, could I share my best practices with them? And I never thought in a million years that I would be a business coach. But what I started to realize was, while like working in like a high stress, like fitness gym, kind of like 9 to 5, actually 12-hour day, more so like environment was part of what contributed to the decline in my health and my skin cancer. It also gave me a really unique set of business skills and wisdom to share with other people. It's like I got an MBA working in that environment, because at the age of 25, I was managing and dissecting like profit and loss statements for this $1 million fitness facility. And I was managing client retention and membership building and coming up with strategies to increase the revenue for personal training, and like doing all of this like business stuff that now I was then applying in my own business to help me build a really successful practice. And so fast forward, here I am with you to share all this business wisdom to with people that are listening to us. And that's what I've been primarily doing for the last 7 years, is really helping other functional health professionals and coaches create a really strong, solid, successful business foundation that allows them to scale their business with freedom, so that they can have the impact in the world that they want to, while also making like a good income that supports their lifestyle, right? To make the most out of every moment in life that we've got. And that's my story in a nutshell.
Oh, that's an awesome story, and I'm so happy that you're past your health, crisis. I know that's very scary, and I'm glad that you took all this wonderful advice that FDN does provide and really get to the root cause of all these issues. So, yeah, no, I'm very happy to hear that, and I'm really excited to kind of dive into your business acumen, because you definitely and basically said that you've learned a lot of the skills through that gym environment. And that's, I guess, how you develop this into what the foundational pieces that can get health coaches to thrive in their practices. So I'm curious, what are those foundational pieces? What may be the first couple steps that you think a health coach should take when they're just starting out?
Yeah, so I think like the first thing that is most essential that I had to figure out for myself, and now that I teach other people, is to get clear on who your ideal client is. In other words, who is your niche? Because when we're not clear about who our ideal client is or that niche, then we find ourselves like kind of chasing things all the time, like chasing different marketing strategies. Or even when we go out in the world and try to talk about our services, it's kind of falling flat with people because we're not speaking about it in a clear way, or because we're not speaking to the right person, essentially. And this is something that I resisted at first, and most health professionals do, because we're heart-centered individuals. Like, we want to help everybody. But as the saying goes, when you help everyone, you're helping no one, essentially. And we also have to be really considerate of our own health and well-being in order to show up in our best capacity to actually truly help people. So when we are trying to help everyone, we have a tendency to like exhaust a lot of energy and spread ourselves really thin, which was happening to me in like the beginning also. Like I resisted niching. I didn't have this clarity. And so I was just like basically like servicing anybody and everyone who would come through my practice door, which, from one side was really good because I got a lot of like experience in that way, but also it was really exhausting because I was constantly like kind of chasing clients to be compliant. They were hard to work with. They, weren't showing up with their appointments. They weren't as engaged exactly. And I was reinventing the wheel like every time somebody new came in because I was treating every case like so differently, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I then realized is like, okay, I need to do this niching thing, but how do I get over the resistance to niching? And the part of niching that was triggering me with the resistance was the conventional approach to niching. So oftentimes, actually almost every single time, niching really focuses on demographics, like age range, gender specific, condition specific, right? Like these like logistical demographic aspects. And as an FDN with such a versatile toolbox, that was really hard because I was like, but I can help everybody, right? Like I can help all kinds of conditions. I can help all kinds of genders. I can like help different age ranges. And at the same time, I needed to focus in on a specific person. So what I started to explore or notice within my clients was this connection between me, like who I was as a person, and then the things that I had in common with the ideal people that I was working with. So in the gamut of clients that I had been working with, some of them were not ideal, but there were a handful that were ideal. And I was like, let me kind of dissect them and figure out what is happening here. And what I recognized was they were a reflection of me. We had similar personality traits. We had similar interests. We had similar hobbies. We had similar experiences in life that kind of shaped us. And this is why we connected so well with each other. And you can think about this in terms of, think about your circle of friends or the colleagues that you connect with the most. Like the reason why we surround ourselves with those people is because we have these shared values, shared experiences, shared morals, outlooks in life, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, this is really interesting. And then I really started to focus on what's called the psychographics to figure out who my niche is. So psychographics are all the things that I kind of just mentioned. It is, the personality traits, their hobbies, behaviors, like characteristics, what is the experience that they are having in life, the psychology of the person, essentially. And this also became really important from the perspective of like, as a non-licensed professional, like I'm not a licensed doctor or acupuncturist or chiropractor. I'm a FDN practitioner, which is like a health coach. We have to be really careful about making claims around specific conditions, right? So it's like, how do you get around that essentially? So I kind of like figured this out and realized that my ideal client, here's how I describe them, is a busy, health-minded professional who's looking for the missing pieces of their health puzzle so they can actually fix what is wrong and get back to feeling like themselves again. And that was me. That is a description of me. That is a description of every single ideal client that comes through my practice. And the reason that I think this is so essential, Omar, it is like super critical, is because your niche then becomes the guide for everything else in your business. I like to say, think about it like the gut of the body. We say the gut is the cornerstone of health, right? Or for those of us who are running lab testing out there, it's like your niche is like the lab test where you get all the data from to guide, what you're going to do in a protocol. Like your niche is going to guide everything that you do in your business. So when you know who this ideal person is, you intimately know who they are. You know what words they're using to like describe their problems and what kinds of solutions that they're looking for. You know what social media platforms they like or where they're spending their time, so that you know like where to go market yourself to get in front of them, and also what words to use in your marketing to connect with them. It also then guides the design of your program offerings. Like, how are you going to like take them on a journey of transformation to actually get results? Like, based on who your ideal client is, are they going to do better with 45-minute appointments or 25-minute appointments? Like, my busy health minded professional does best, is most successful when I do 45-minute appointments every 2 weeks, because of their busy schedule, right?
Mhm.
Versus somebody who's working with people that have like more in the chronic illness area, or they have a lot of brain fog. That person probably doesn't have the capacity for 25 minutes. So maybe they need 45 minutes. Maybe they need 25 minute appointments on a weekly basis to chunk it down into smaller components, right? Step by step it, essentially. So this is step number one, is and this is true in every single other industry. It's just so funny how we deny it. We want to resist it and deny it in the health industry. Like, marketing gurus and experts out there like Seth Godin, if you read any of his books and other experts, you're going to find that like businesses have their greatest success when they niche into 3% of the marketplace,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
no, yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny, is as much as I hear it, I appreciate that you talk about your resistance to it. I have resistance to it. A lot of health coaches have resistance to it. And for the very reasons that you mentioned, we like to help everybody. And it's one of those things that we kind of feel like we're losing out on contributing to the world. But at the end of the day, it's just you're 100% correct. And it's something that we just have to embrace and just do it, literally.
Exactly. And it's like I was in one of my business coaching groups this morning, a group call that's part of my programs, and that I do with practitioners now. And one of the questions from a practitioner was, what do you do when you enroll a client who's not compliant? They keep, pushing back their appointments. They're not really like following the protocol, and yet they're complaining about not getting results and wanting this to progress faster. And the first thing that I said, Omar, to that person was that you need to go back and look at, is this person an ideal client for you? First and foremost, let's take this experience and kind of dissect it to help us get better about identifying who's the right client and who's not. Because when we have symptoms like this that show up in our business, those symptoms are telling us something. And I would say, pretty much like 90 something percent of the time when we're having issues with clients, it's it's most likely related back to the fact that we weren't clear enough about the niche, and maybe you're in a refining process, and these people are not ideal people in the business.
So,
That
no, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just say that could be like, we could think of those issues anywhere from clients that aren't compliant to people who, throw objections in a discovery call, to like, just feeling like your marketing efforts aren't fruitful in what you're doing. And so we have to go back and look at like, what is that clarity of who it is that you're speaking to, and what are you attracting into your business, basically.
Yeah, and I was just curious, how much did you incorporate like your own style and your personality and your coaching skills to identifying your niche? Was that a factor in it at all, as far as addressing your ideal client?
Yeah, so that actually is part of what comes together with this is, since your niche is a reflection of who you are, like your story, then you can look at yourself and the experience that you had and go, okay, what are the things that I have done along the way that have helped to produce results for me that I would then be kind of teaching other people to do, right?
Mhm.
So, what do I mean by that? Let me give you a really specific example. So obviously, I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I have a set of tools related to like lab testing and coaching people through lifestyle changes like diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation, toxin removal, right?
Mhm.
So that has been one part of my healing journey. The other part of my healing journey has been related to realigning my belief systems, like working through like self-worth stuff. How do I make sure that I make myself a priority so that my health is not sacrificed anymore? Because what was happening was I was sacrificing my health in pursuit of my career, essentially, ages ago, like in my 20s and stuff. I was pursuing perfection. I was an overachiever. And so with that, I was just grinding my body into the ground all the time. And part of like what has come into play for me that's been helpful is neuro linguistic programming, which is called NLP work. So I have gone through NLP training for myself. It was life changing. And now I also bring those elements into the coaching that I do. So, like, my biggest package that I offer has 21 appointments. So I meet with somebody for 21 appointments over the course of like 9 to 12 months. And half of those appointments are related to lifestyle specific stuff. So, like diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation, toxin removal, that kind of stuff. And then the other half of those appointments is doing NLP work with them, helping to realign their belief systems in the way that they think about themselves and the world so that now their behavior changes can stick because they're learning how to navigate life differently, essentially. So, this is where your story really helps you to become like, is what makes you unique as a health practitioner or a coach out there, because we all have similar credentials, right? Like, Omar, what are your credentials again?
Oh, I graduated in IIN, so I'm the health coach with the AADP. And
Yeah, right. And think about, do you know the statistics on how many IIN coaches there are out there? I just met one over the weekend at a conference that I was at, but
oh
I
God,
mean,
it was one of the biggest schools, and it's been around forever, so about a million. I don't know.
exactly. So, like, out of all the other IIN coaches out there in the world, why would somebody choose you over a different, like the IIN coach that I met over the weekend? Right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I do find it very fascinating, especially this topic, because the niche component is so vital. Just makes everything a lot easier.
Mhm.
And like you said, the only thing that really I found differentiated myself was that I was a male in a sea of. It was so funny, Jen. I would go to the IIN conferences in Manhattan, and me and my buddy were probably two of maybe 10 guys out of like 20,000 people there. It was like unbelievable. And not saying that because I think IIN is a different uh talk about niche for IIN. It was more of a women attracting business model as
Mhm.
opposed to FDN. I think FDN had a lot more, like a lot of my buddies are FDN and they're all like my male friends, which is kind of ironic, right? Uh,
Right.
yeah, so it's like, I get it, and I think that that's interesting that our story itself bears
Yeah.
in the fruits of what we're doing. And I think if I was to give anybody advice and see if you would agree with this. I've always kind of felt like people who would have difficulty niching down, especially in the beginning, should
Mhm.
kind of just look at who they were maybe a few months ago to a year ago
Yes.
and kind of work from there. And then you kind of get the ins and outs of your business as well. And that helps a lot because you're not really you're basically working from A to B and trying to get a person just though that essential first steps. Um, and that Tony Robbins and these other titans of industry who are really like at the letter Z.
Mhm.
We're not there yet, and there's nothing wrong with that. The value is in those steps. Even B2C or whatever it is. That's an audience in and of itself.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is where we have to start. And that's such a good point that you made about like looking at where you were, 2 years ago, like two steps behind your current self. And that is exactly what I encourage people to do is like, look at your whole story from the point before, you really realize that you had a health thing going on, if that's been part of your story, all the way through your movement to today, and really pulling apart those pieces of like, where were you at what point in time in that story that led you into the work that you're doing? Because that is where your person is currently at in their experience. They're always going to be two steps behind you, and you represent the solution that they currently need,
Hmm.
essentially, right?
Yeah.
And being a guy in the space, yes, like the health coaching world is predominantly women for the most part, right? But even being, a guy in this space, like this could be that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to work with guys, but there are differentiating factors there, right? So like
Yeah.
I was just talking to another FDN. He's in one of my business programs, and he's out of Kuwait. And we were working on figuring out his niche. And he primarily has been working with women,
Hmm.
and he enjoys mostly working with women. And I was like, well, let's kind of like explore this. Tell me more about your story. And it turns out that like he grew up in a household full of women. He has all sisters,
Hmm.
got no brothers. Mom, his aunt helped raise him. His grandma was around. I mean, his dad was around, and has a great dad, but he was surrounded by women. And he was saying, he's like, I just know how to be around women. I know how to like, I'm not afraid of their menstrual cycles or like those conversations or whatever's happening. And I was like, this is exactly why you attract women. You just exude this like energy of trust with women that they're attracted to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, it's really interesting. This is where we can look at ourselves and our experience and our story, and we can really start to figure out who our ideal client is, as we're saying.
Yeah, no, totally. And I kind of feel that I've always had that angle as well. I just like working with women more so because they they're more receptive to the preventative side, which I've always been fascinating with. Right. Like guys don't do anything until it's broken. Right. So generally speaking. And I've always found it a little bit harder to get guys on board with the preventative stuff. And women were just so easily acceptable to hearing that side of the story, which I enjoy the most in practicing and health coaching. So yeah, I could definitely relate to our Kuwait friend.
Yeah, which is funny because I work actually with a lot of guys,
Wow.
and I think about like, so I grew up in a single dad household with
Hmm.
a younger brother. Like, remember I started off talking about how I love sports, and,
Yeah,
I played flag football. Like I still love football. Like there's some energy about me that like, there's this balance where I work really well with men and they're really receptive to me,
that's
you
great.
know? So it just goes back to like, what has shaped you in your life, and who are you as a person that's going to connect you with somebody else, essentially.
And totally, totally. So I was on your website and I noticed that we do have a kind of a similar path as far as what we're actually displaying on our websites. Like I still do the health coaching stuff, but I also am trying to get more into the business coaching lane because I'm just fascinated by it and it's like the newness of it. I'm
Mhm.
just curious, do you still have the same passion for health coaching? I hope I don't get you in trouble with this question, but it, are we on the same page where it's like this
Yes.
business thing is kind of like I don't know. I because I overcame sugar addiction, and it's like to me, it's like, oh, that's so 15 years ago. I don't even think about that kind of stuff anymore. And even though I love sharing that information about my story, and I love helping people get off sugar and kicking the habits and stuff like that, the business stuff to me is just like so new and fresh, and it's always changing. And I just fell in love with it. I'm just curious to see if you have a preference now and are you leaning more in one direction over the other?
Yeah. So I think that I am equally passionate about both. I still work with clients. I absolutely love it because, there's a lot of people can relate to that are listening, like just the impact that you get to have on somebody's life is astounding sometimes.
Hmm.
I think about my client who she came to me, she was 59 years old. muscular sclerosis. She had tried all different types of drug trials and treatments. She was dealing with like leg neuropathy. Her daughter had to sit on the consultation with us because her brain fog was so bad. She had, she wasn't tracking conversations really well. And that's where we started. And doing like the FDN work with her, this is the work that I do, like 9 months later, she's off of almost every single one of her medications,
Wow.
chasing her grandson around the backyard. And when she turned 60, she was awarded like the top real estate agent in her company. Like
Hmm.
that's a profound impact on somebody's life. So I truly love that work. I have a wait list of like for clients that I work with in the health capacity now, because I do primarily focus on the business side. Because as I've realized, as I said before, like I have a unique set of like wisdom and experience from all the business, like career work that I did before to share with other people. And I know that when I help other practitioners and health coaches create a successful business, then the impact across the globe is exponential.
Right. Right.
Like, and the two things that I'm most passionate about with that, Omar, is one is, obviously impacting more people, like changing people's health and doing that through helping practitioners do that. But secondly, the thing that I really am so passionate about in this work is helping practitioners and coaches do this without burning themselves out,
Mhm.
because I hear that all too often. And we have a responsibility to lead by example. Like we can't be asking our clients to prioritize self-care if we're not, right?
Mhm.
Like you can't be that burnt out healer doing this work. That's not gonna like fly anymore. Like I just spent last week, I spent 9 hours in my friend's clinic in Philadelphia having her work on my body all day. So, I invested $2,000 in that and I took a whole entire day to do that, 9 hours. Plus, I traveled. Like, I have built my businesses around being able to have that kind of flexibility and freedom to keep pouring back into myself so that I can show up for the people that I'm working with. And I think that that is like so incredibly important for practitioners and coaches. So this isn't about the hustle. Like I don't think people should have to feel like they're hustling all the time. There is an ease and flow with this, and teaching people how to do it with ease and flow and reach whatever level of success that they want to. Like you said, like Tony Robbins, like some of these other big people out there, that doesn't have to be your benchmark of success. Success gets to be whatever you want it to be. And sometimes people just need to have permission to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, that's entirely another show, right?
Right?
It's just like that method that I know that you offer so many individuals to kind of help them get that balance in their lives and run businesses and be successful, and finding that true balance between just self-care and making money. And that's just a huge other topic, especially with business structures and stuff like that, which you help so many different people do that. So I do want to allow you, and I promise you 30 to 40 minutes, and we're kind of at that mark. Give us your information so that we can follow up on all the great things that you're doing in the business world. And if anybody is interested in getting any of your services and want to jump on that waiting list for health coaching specifically, this is an opportunity to drop all those things on us right now.
Yeah, I mean, I love Instagram. That's one place to connect with me. I am sharing business insights, tips, information over on Instagram. My handle is Holistic Health Boss. So holistic is with the W, like whole body, whole person. So that's one way just to like get some more of this awesome stuff that I've been sharing. You can also head over to my website, holistichealthboss.com. I've got like a business mentoring tab on there that talks about some of the programs and things that I offer. And I really, welcome people to reach out to me via a DM on Instagram or an email. There's some other workshops and master classes that I do from time to time. on the business side of things. And if I'm not the right person for you for whatever you're looking for, like mentorship or guidance, I've been in this industry for quite some time now. And I really like to be in integrity. And if I'm not a good fit to help somebody get to where they want to be in their business, and I've got a Rolodex of referrals to help point people in the right direction.
No, I appreciate that. No, you've been fantastic today, Jen, and thanks again for making this work. I know we went through a summer of kind of just going back and forth with just scheduling and stuff like that. So I really appreciate your flexibility, and it was a pleasure having you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I hope this helps a lot of people out there.
Oh, I definitely know it will. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks.
Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.